Hello, students, and welcome to the next installment of AP US History. We're still in Unit 1. We're in Unit 1, Period 2, 1607 to 1754. We are in Lesson 10. This is Culture and Life in the Colonies. So we're going to talk about the new ideas of or not new ideas, but just kind of the increasing political, economic, cultural exchanges within the Atlantic world, um, and how it's going to shape and alter and have an impact on the colonial lifestyle. And we're going to take a look at how the movement of people and ideas and products change and shape the world or the new world as we know it. And we're going to look at people that are going to challenge the social norms. So we'll take a look at all of these aspects. So, with that being said, let's move forward. So, the Atlantic world that we've come to know, because of the triangle trade, because of mercantilism, because of the Columbian exchange, we know that if we remember back from human geography, I don't know if your teachers taught you the Mr. Help, um, the five themes of geography: movement, region, human environmental interaction, location, and place. We know the movement part. We are moving products, we are moving people, we are moving ideas across the Atlantic Ocean and around the Atlantic Ocean. And this completely changes everything. The world from what we knew pre Columbian or Columbus's cross across the Atlantic has changed everything. Um, and we know that we've seen the enslaving in the encomienda system. We've seen the movement of African slaves. We've seen the the capitalism of the financial aspect of mercantilism, which is a huge driving force for those proprietary colonies. We see the persecution of religion that leads to some people moving to the Massachusetts Bay region. We see the development of new religious sects of Christianity, new denominations of Christianity. And we see just this exchanging of goods and people throughout that has dramatically altered um, our, our, our world. There are products now that are not indigenous of North America that are now here because of the Columbian Exchange. People that are not indigenous of here of North America are now here because of this Atlantic world, of this movement of commercial goods, religious, philosophical, political ideologies between the Latin America, North America, Caribbean, Europe, Africa, and even Asia will reshape. We will go from indentured servants, or actually we'll go to the encomienda system in Latin America and the Caribbean, to African slave labor and indentured servant. We've changed things, and with the development of the printing press, ideas are being shaped and altered and moved around. So this whole new Atlantic world that we're seeing now. When we look at British North America, we know that the colonists are British, right? They're most of them are British. They believe in the ideas. They're proud to be British. They embrace England and its European ideas, and they, though some of them are fleeing the Church of England, which the king controls the Church of England, we see this thing called religious tolerance that will eventually happen. We'll see it especially in Maryland because of the Culver family and the Catholics that are there. But we also see the growth of the separatists that want to separate from the Church of England because they said that they're corrupt. You have the Puritans that want to purify the Church of England. You'll get the Quakers and the Shakers and the Presbyterians and the Baptists and the Congregationalists and the Anglicans. Like you just you just see so many different denominations of Christianity that spark up because there's going to be more religious tolerance that will happen. We also know that colonists enjoy a really high standard of living. When you think of all the resources and things they have, they are being taxed, but there is more of what they call a salutary neglect. To give you an example of salutary neglect, something, let's say your parents tell you every Saturday and Sunday night you have to be home at, let's say, 11 o'clock is curfew. You have to be home at 11 o'clock. Every Friday and Saturday night, curfew's 11, got to be home. But you come home at 11:05, 11:10, 11:15, and your parents are like, "Why are you late?" And you just go, "Oh, my bad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry." And there's no punishment, right? You continue to be 5 or 10 or 15 minutes late, week after week after week, day after day. You're late on the weekends. Finally, your parents go, you come home 15 minutes late, and they go, "Give me your car keys. Give me your phone. You're grounded." And you're gonna go, "Well, wait. Well, what just happened?" Well, your parents are were telling you to be home at 11, and then you came home after 11, and they practiced kind of salutary neglect. They gave you a rule of time, and you just kind of ignored it a little bit, or you didn't abide by it. And then all of a sudden, when they drop, they drop the time limit on you, and they punish you now for not um, following the rules. Now you're upset. Well, right now, the colonials, the British North America, is experiencing salutary neglect for the most part. So they have a really high standard of living. They're not. Some of them are getting involved in the black market and smuggling stuff. They're not all paying their taxes, but they like some of the benefits that they're getting, like protection. If you're someone who's getting protection from indigenous people by the British, you like that. But we all know that that is going to change after the French and Indian War. In 1763, we will see the end of salutary neglect. But we also see this growth of Christianity with, more emotional and spiritual ideas. You'll see evangelism will be a reaction to the Enlightenment. So we're going to see this um, the growth of different sects of religion, and we'll talk about that in a few moments a little more. We also see something that helps with the movement of ideas. We see the printing press. And then, if you've taken a Euro class or anything, or a world history class, Gutenberg's Bible, right? Having the Bible for people to read it themselves, they can interpret things for themselves. So now you start to see when more people start to read and interpret the Bible for themselves, that leads to more denominations of Christianity, different interpretations. Another great book that was written during this time is the Poor Richard's Almanac. Now, the Poor Richard's Almanac, the almanac is a series of information. It's sort of like it's Google of its time period. It's sort of like where you go for facts and information. So there'll be a series of dates of like, hey, when is the last time it frosted year after year after year, and the prime time to plant, when you should harvest, medical tips like medicines that the herbal medicines of some sort. So it was really a source book to help people not only with the calendar, with astrological guides, but it was a book of information, and it became very, very popular. And this is Ben Franklin's bad boy here. Ben Franklin, and we'll talk about him again, he is kind of the rock star, so to speak. He's a renaissance man of his time period, meaning that he is essentially a scientist, an inventor. He's a founding father. He's a civil activist. Um, he helps with resolve conflicts. Um, he'll be an ambassador for American foreign lands. He is really uh, dabbles in everything and very successful in all those things it is. He helps create a school. Um, he's a deist too. He believes in God, but he doesn't believe that God plays a role in everyday life. Okay, but having print now lets information move. up and down the colonies. Ideas are moving, and people read other people's ideas and points of view, and we really see changing the ideas of democracy and religion. Those things start to, I don't know, very slowly start to spread. These ideas really start to slowly spread over time, and we'll eventually see that really spur on after 1763. We also know that education is going to start to become important. Harvard, 1636, founded by the Puritans. Now, the Puritans, they focused on learning from the Bible, reading from the Bible. They led the first tax supported schools. They also, by 1660, they're having a little bit, not as many Puritans as there once was. So they're going to practice something called the halfway covenants. This idea of the halfway covenant is sort of like, it's like a limited membership based for being baptized, but without any conversion experiences. So it's almost like some of us have been baptized, but we don't go to church on a regular basis, and we're not like really into the church experience. So you go to church on holidays or special occasions or certain things be based on you being baptized into that church. So you're sort of like a part timer, but not fully vested into the church. But this is still a way so that the Puritans can still have quite a few members. But this Harvard, which is an Ivy League school today, was really kind of based upon the idea of the clergy teaching people about their ideologies in church. We'll see the Presbyterians will create Princeton, the Anglicans, Columbia, the Baptists will create Brown, the Reformers create Rutgers. We see the Congregationalists create Dartmouth. So, you see that Ivy League schools today that you see, many of them have religious backgrounds of how they were developed to spread the ideologies of their denomination of Christianity. But churches, churches played an important role in society. It gave people hope, faith, something to believe in. Okay, played a huge role. The Bible. People are reading more. People are becoming more literate to read the Bible. Okay, um, but yet we see the new sects of the church develop, new denominations of Christianity. So we see that those growing. We see religious tolerance will develop. Um, Yet we do know the Church of England is still under the rule of the king, and that's kind of what they're trying to instill on people. But it's hard to regulate things from across the pond. All right. We will see the government tax people and financially support its specific church, but with increasing immigration or migration, I should say, we saw new sects of churches develop. And then we did see conflict arise between some denominations of Christianity. We see like the Puritans have kind of this dark past. We talk about the Puritans being this, as John Winthrop put, this city upon a hill, kind of as the role model for everyone else. But then they had the Salem witch trials. Um, and when you think of the Puritans, is really the Salem witch trial, is that really the role model? Is that really what they want everyone to be? And so that kind of shows the dark side of it. We know the Puritans have been it's a very male dominated society. And we see that women would be accused, single women that owned land, or they're the sole survivor of the family and they inherit the land in a male dominated society. So they were frowned upon. Those single women that had, maybe their husband died and they have the land now. So they're frowned upon because it's a male dominated society. They had two kind of within their community, they had like sort of like two different neighborhoods. They had the wealthy and they had the poor. And this division of wealth, we started to see persecution of the poor. And some of those are going to be accused during the Salem witch trial. We see older women being accused of witchcraft by younger women. So this is kind of a black eye for the Puritans. But once again, religion played a huge role, and we will see people that have been excommunicated from the Puritans. Some of these new original thinkers that are going to sprawl out through the colonies up north. So when we think of some of those original thinkers, we see that Roger Williams, who was once a Puritan, he will form Providence, Rhode Island. He believed in the separation of church and state. He believed in religious tolerance. He believed in more of a better relationship with indigenous people. He believed that the individual conscience was beyond the control of any civic or church authority. He believes in more individual thought, that you don't have to be forced down this certain ideology. Okay. Um, so he is a defender of the colony, a spokesperson for freedom of conscience in both England and America. He has really believed that we should have this certain freedom of thinking. He will be excommunicated. He will create Providence, Rhode Island. Another one we'll see is Thomas Hooker. Thomas Hooker is also someone that doesn't follow that strict uh, ideology. He's going to lead some Boston Puritans to Hartford, Connecticut. Um, he's going to write the first constitution in American history for Connecticut. He's going to create the fundamental orders of Connecticut in 1639. He believes the government should answer to the people. Okay. He believes it, and he disagrees with the policy of restricting suffrage to male church members. That more should learn. It shouldn't be just that male dominated idea. So he's more of a, once again, original thinker. Another such person in the North is Anne Hutchinson. Um, she is going to be banished for her ideologies from the Puritans. She's going to be excommunicated, and she's going to go to Providence, Rhode Island. She believes in antinomianism. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. The idea that faith alone, not deeds, is necessary for salvation, that your faith is what should lead you to your salvation. She challenged the Puritan church. She challenged gender roles. She was like one of the first ever feminists of this time period. She's a feminist. She challenged that male authority. She preached to both men and women. Okay, but she's an original thinker. Then, of course, we have the deist Ben Franklin. He is part of the press. He's an inventor. He's a Freemason. He's a founder. He's a civic activist. He's one of the key figures in the American Enlightenment. He's one of the founding fathers. He is like a Renaissance man of his time period. He invented plenty of things, created a school in Pennsylvania. He is just this worldly man within the educational system, the science and invention system, within our politics. Okay. Now, another important person of this time period is a guy named John Peter Singer. Now, John Peter Singer in 1734 he writes for the New York paper. He's an editor and a publisher of the New York paper, and he's going to be brought to trial because he criticized William Cosby, who is the New York royal governor. Now let's think. The royal governor, he's essentially appointed by the king. So the royal governor is kind of like a representation of the king, and he criticizes him in his article. Now, back then, if there was any injury of governor's reputation, was a criminal act back then, even if it were true or false. So, if you did anything to disrespect or to injure the reputation of the royal governor, you'd go to jail for that. So, in 1735, they'll finally have a trial, and Zinger's attorney, Andrew Hamilton, I believe that was his name, Andrew Hamilton, um, is going to argue that the statements that were made in the article were true. And a jury is actually going to vote to acquit Zinger. Now, this is a little controversial at this time because you have a jury deliberating. So essentially, like a trial by peers are going to deliberate and acquit him because essentially they're saying that he has the freedom of press. The freedom of press. So this court case essentially opened the doors to the freedom of the press. Now, this is only 1734, 1735 time period. Well, now we talked about the growth of the printing press, the growth of the written word. So now people are going to write ideas and share philosophies and publicly criticize royal people, governors, mayors, people in charge, things that are happening, things that people are upset with. And we're going to see this slowly but surely start to grow. And by the 1760s and 1770s, we really see this grow, this freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Now, we know that won't be added to our Constitution until years and years. We won't, not years and years, but when we actually finally write our Constitution, it'll be added as one of the parts of the Bill of Rights. But it'll be years later. This is 1734, 1735. So this is an amazing thing that we start to see starting so early. Now, we have to think of some essential ideas that are happening now. And when we think of the 16, 1700s now, um, we see the importance of tolerance. We see the ideas of whether it's the Tolerance Act or the Maryland Tolerance Act. We see the growth of religious freedoms, so people can start to worship in their own manner. We see the growth of democratic ideas, right? What is democracy? What are the pros and cons of it? Um, what about this political thought, this challenging the ideas of an absolute monarchy or a constitutional monarchy or even parliament eventually, this idea of democracy and liberty and freedoms, those things start to slowly develop and start to gain strength as time goes by because people like the freedoms that they're having with that idea of salutary neglect. And then when we see the growth of something called social mobility, is it important to have social mobility? Is it important to be able that rags to riches story, coming over the from the across the ocean and start with nothing and grow into something big, right? Mobility. People start to see, is it possible during these colonial times? So these are three major ideas that you have to look at to look at that development as we grow. And they're moving slowly. They don't have the internet back then. They're just getting print press around, but it's moving very slow. But it will eventually get to the point where we have a revolutionary war and we have the shot heard around the world. And then we defeat the British and get our independence. Then once we get our independence, we have questions of how to do things. So there'll be lots of compromises because people can't make decisions. So lots of compromises, band-aids to our democracy that will eventually lead to a civil war and then a reconstruction and a remaking of our country. Okay. But these things take time. They take time to develop. Okay. Now, once again, here is an example of one of those short answer prompts. You should pause the video and read the prompt and take 10 minutes to answer this. 10 minutes is all you need, one side of a sheet of paper, and be able to answer this. And each of them, when you answer the prompt, you should put A, answer the prompt, then B, answer the prompt, and then C, answer C. Do not make it one big long paragraph. That's not how they want it. They want to be able to read through it and clearly see your individual answers. So A says select one of the individuals below and briefly explain his or her influence on the colonies. Roger Williams, Anne Hutchinson, John Peter Zinger. Then B, analyze the extent of colonial toleration using one of the groups below, the Quakers, Puritans, and Catholics. And then C is explain one piece of evidence to support your response above. So you would pick either A or B, some additional piece of evidence that supports what your response was in A or B. Okay, so please pause it, take that minute to answer the question. Okay, so that wraps up lesson 10. Hopefully, you feel a little more informed about some changes that are starting to happen in the colonial North America, the British North America. Um, we'll see you soon, and we'll see you back here for lesson 11. Have a great day.